in the Sarvari Roy Chaudhary Festival of Music, who himself was a great sculptor. And we know that sculpture ports into music and music alternately ports into sculpture. We have David Trasoff from New York.
No, from Washington State.
Washington DC, yes.
No, not Washington DC, Washington State.
Washington
West Coast.
State. Yeah, yes. And is this your first visit in Kolkata?
This is probably my 20th visit to Calcutta.
And you have been associated with Ustad Ali Akbar Khan.
Yes.
From 1973.
Yes.
And that was one of the hallmark years of your music journey, you would say?
Oh, absolutely. Meeting the world's greatest living musician.
Yes.
And finding out that he had located to California,
yes,
to the San Francisco area, and that he was willing to have anyone who was sincerely interested come and learn from him. You don't see the greatest artist of any particular genre take people who are beginners, because he really believed in beginners. He really believed in
someone who has no knowledge and then, start working from the scratch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what he did there. He trained so many people.
Yes. And is there any, you picked up Sarod because, was there any background behind it? Were you coming from a family where people were musicians at that point of time? Because 1973, I would recall a year where a lot of things were happening.
Yes.
A lot of things were happening.
I came certainly from an artistically aware family, but not that they were musicians as such. They were actually immigrants, so they were just becoming established in the U.S.
So your roots go back to
Russia and Ukraine.
Okay.
But so they were very sincerely art lovers.
Yes.
So I had that always in me, and always a strong interest in music. But no, I came to play the sarod because that was Ali Akbar Khan's instrument, and because the sound that he made on that instrument was just not like any other sound I'd ever heard.
Yes. And how long this partnership, and you also performed with Pandit in different concerts?
Ustadji. I never had the chance to sit with him on stage as such.
Okay.
But I studied with him right up pretty much until the day he passed away in 2009.
Okay. And then your inclinations towards playing also tabla?
Yes.
With Zakirji?
With Zakir Hussain. At the time that I came to study with Khan Sahib there in California, that was at the same time that Khan Sahib brought Zakirji to be the tabla instructor at the college. He was there for about the next 4 or 5 years. And I just recognized that here was another musician who was so great, and a chance to just study from them. I didn't matter what I learned or didn't learn. I never had any aim at being an accomplished tabla player. I definitely had an aim to become an accomplished sarod player, but my interest in tabla was just for the exposure and the knowledge and
the understanding of the two instruments.
Understanding and for learning
and
for learning from another incredible musician.
Yes. You were very lucky.
Yes. I know.
People will be jealous.
No, there was a time, and especially in that mid '70s.
Yeah.
There had been a big flare of interest in Indian music in the United States, and then it kind of by 1973 or 4, it had kind of
a plateau.
It had tamped down a little bit.
Okay.
But there we were, kind of the core group there at the college in California with these two incredible musicians, and it was like nobody knew we were there.
Yeah.
We would learn from them. Every now and then they'd tell us, oh, go to this or that place, we're just going to play for our own practice, our own amusement, and we would just come and listen to them play for each other for hours.
Yes. And one interesting thing is that your research paper, I think when you did your PhD from University of California, Santa Barbara,
yes,
and also your MFA in California Institute of Arts, you talked about transformation of Hindustani instrumental, the performance practice in the colonial perspective. How it interacted with the colonial prejudice
Yes. You've done your homework,
yes.
my friend.
So that's, I think, typical area in terms of research and study and analysis, which not much people have, really have gone into at that point of time, and how the identity was maintained in spite of all the architectural buildings here and there, the imperial, the structures around. Hindustani music played a very important part to hold that lamp of light.
Yes, it did, and that was a very interesting question that I came across very early on from actually a great Bengali scholar.
I think
historian Chatterjee.
His name is Tagore, Shaulendra Mohan Tagore.
No. That's a century earlier. No, I'm talking about a contemporary historian here at the University of Calcutta, who proposed this question to try to understand its why, for instance, did visual art ended up adapting Western kind of techniques and norms, and it moved away from what it had been. But music and to some extent dance resisted. I mean, they transformed what they did in a way that stayed very recognizably Indian, and that preserved a strong link to how they had been in the past. So that was the question he proposed, and then that really fascinated me. It's like, what was it about music that kept...
did you talk about Alan Danilou?
Alan Danilou. I'm aware of him.
Yes, he did a lot of work on the Hindustani music.
He did a lot of work, and he certainly helped Europeans become more interested. On the other hand, Danilou accepted a lot of what he was told about the music in a very uncritical fashion. So, he said, "Oh, I've talked to the pundits. The pundits say it's this and that and the other thing," and he didn't go and look into it. He just accepted their evaluation. And so, a lot of things that he promulgated were not
the right way of looking at it.
Yeah, when you looked at them further, they didn't really hold up in quite that same way. But it was very valuable work, and it was necessary. I mean, there was a phase, you might say. And then a more critical phase started to come in, and I was part of that.
Yes. Seamlessly. And you have created music for film, theater, dance, and you had a recognition for this award-winning Los Angeles production, A Midsummer Night's Dream. And now bringing in Shakespeare into the context, which itself is, Midsummer Night's Dream is set in not England but in somewhere else. And as we know, in Shakespeare there are different kind of voices. It creates a very polysemic structure, right? To set that into the music which you have learned, was there a Western part to it also in terms of production?
You're familiar with Midsummer Night's Dream, so you know that you have essentially a kind of shall we say, an upper class, and then you have the mechanicals, the slower. So this director, his concept, which I think was very interesting, you might say, he set the entire play in colonial India. And so you had the quote upper class, I have to use that, they were the the colonials, the British, and so then the mechanicals became country Indian,
the bucolic or the rustic class.
Yes, like that. So his idea was to have incorporate Indian music as part of the narrative. So I composed a score for that. We performed it live for every performance.
That was fantastic.
It was.
And the Indian art film Leela is also where you have your inputs.
Yes, uncredited.
Yes.
No, I mean, it's funny. My input is interesting. Are you familiar with the movie?
Yeah.
The main character plays the Sarod. That's part of his identity, and that's part of the actual action of the movie. And there are many places in the movie where he plays or his teacher plays. I mean, it's actually not not film music, but the actual narrative of the film itself, the internal narrative. Every time you hear a sarod being played, whether it's him or the teacher, it's me.
Yes.
Doing all those parts. So that was kind of incorporated into the action of the movie.
Fantastic. And is there any other new projects which you are coming up with, which you want to share with the audience? Something which we can look up to?
Well, you know, I've moved recently into a new area, so I'm still trying to feel my way around.
Where is that?
Actually, well, Northwest Washington State. I live just south of the Canadian city of Vancouver. I live in the U.S., but just south of Vancouver.
Okay.
Vancouver has a lot of world culture of all kinds.
Yes. People from different parts.
And there's definitely a strong South Asian component.
Yes.
So I'm still looking at getting involved and coming up with getting back into some of those kind of projects.
And before we leave you, if the young aspirants were, who will be inspired and motivated after seeing this interview to pick up sarod or tabla or whatever they want to pick up, because you were in touch with such great maestros, what is one word of motivation you have learned from them personally, which you want to share with the younger generation people to, aspire and play? I mean, what is that spark, that one word which you have learned from Zakirji and
really you have to love the music. You have to love the music. You have to love it so much that you practice, and that practice isn't a chore.
Yes.
It's something that you look forward to doing.
Yes.
And actually, I'll even a little beyond that. After many, many years, when my guru was pretty elderly, but I had done a recording project,
yes.
And actually it was a combination of instruments, guitar, acoustic bass, sarod, and percussion, and I made some new compositions and everything, and I wanted him to hear it before I put the recording out. And so I came over and quite hesitantly, it's like, okay, please listen. And he listened to a couple of the pieces, and he sort of thought for a minute, and he said, it's okay. Have fun.
Have fun.
So that was his final, you might say.
You need to enjoy.
That was his final word to me after all the work and the study. It's like, okay, have fun.
Yes.
So
yeah, and thank you for being with us, and hope we can pour this love to everyone in the world.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
Thank you.